Canada starts to allow first-time homebuyers to amortize their mortgages for 30 years instead of 25. Weren't mortgages already 30 years? So there's a very nuanced thing that I'm going to be explaining in this video on what this actually impacts on how first-time homebuyers buy their home. Plus, I'm going to be breaking down a lot of the goodies that were announced in the Canadian federal budget on how the real estate market is going to be changing, with some of these proposed rules that are coming up, and I'll give you my take on it as well. So make sure to stay tuned. Now, if you are looking for some help on how to navigate this real estate market in the spring 2024 market, you could do so by booking a call with me. Use the link that's right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Simply click on a date and a time that works best for you. And then when you see the prompt, fill in your name, email, mobile phone number, and the question you have for me, and then we'll chat then. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. My name is Zhen, and we're enjoying the content I'm putting out there. Do me a solid and like and subscribe. So the article we'll be reviewing today is Canada to allow for 30-year amortization for first-time home buyers on new homes. So prior, if you were under 20% down, you had to do 25 years. Now you're allowed to extend to 30 years, right? So we're breaking all of this down on how it impacts the market. And the Liberals also dropped a lot of real estate related goodies in their federal budget that I'll be breaking down for you. So this is going to be a good video, so make sure you stay tuned. And the first Liberal goodie changes that we'll be going over is this 30-year amortization. So to be super clear, first-time home buyers could have done 30-year amortization if they had 20% down, right? This is kind of a small subset that it's affecting. And how this works is that we're talking about insured mortgages, which is anyone who has less than 20% down and has to be less than 99.99, or essentially $1 million, right? So if you fit into that category, instead of doing 25 years, which was the maximum they had before, they're going to extend it to 30. So how much of an impact is this going to have on first-time home buyers? I did the math. I'm just saying if you have 7.5% down payment, which is over here, 30-year versus 25-year, it's like $190 of savings. Is that going to move the needle for some people? Absolutely. Is it going to move the needle for most? Probably not. And I would say most of the people we're working with that are first-time homebuyers, they do have their 20% down because they're trying to avoid that CMHC mortgage insurance. So I wouldn't say this would move the needle too much, and I wouldn't say it adds too much demand kind of on the supply we have. Not to mention, there's a little caveat on top of all of this is that this has to be a new home, meaning pre-construction. Now look, this is a nationwide kind of policy, but I'm going to be giving you my take from a GTA perspective. I don't know of many first-time home buyers that are actually looking to buy a property in the new pre-construction space that's sub $1 million. And let me just go through the rationale. What can you buy for sub $1 million that's new right now that isn't a condo? Not many, right? Like you may be able to get some if you go into those exurbs of Ontario or something, right? But in the GTA core, no. Most of the freeholds I'm seeing right now are essentially $1 million plus. And because there's a premium on it, right? So it's very challenging. And the reason why I'm giving you this context is if you are buying a property and you don't know when it's going to complete, if you buy land-based housing, at least it's going to be complete in 18 to 2 years, which, within reason, you can plan your life around it. But if you're talking pre-construction where there's delays, depending on the height of the building, you could be 5 to 7 years out. So, life may change. And by the time the building comes to completion, your life may have changed and you may not be a first-time home buyer on completion anymore, which is stuff I've seen a lot of in the last 3 to 4 years. So it doesn't make much sense. Now, where I think, depending on how they implement this is, are they going to allow for this 30-year amortization for anyone who has bought a pre-construction, in the last few years and are closing after August 1st in 2024? And if that is the case, then this is kind of just a little bit of extend and pretend, helping those who are first-time homebuyers if they can't qualify with these higher rates, right? So I don't think it's going to add much demand to it. I don't think it's going to move the needle. To me, in Toronto, talking about it, it just looks like, hey, we're trying to do some things, but this is such a small segment of first-time homebuyers that I don't think it's going to actually move the needle. And unless you're drilling down into the nitty-gritties of things, it probably isn't going to affect you. But the headline sounds great, right? So yeah, don't really think it's going to do too much. Just like the last time when they wanted a piece of your equity by providing an extra 5% loan to you that's interest free, and nobody took on it. So same kind of concept, right? Pretty much same thing. So some of the other things that they're going to change in this federal budget, I'll put them up over here and I'll go through each and every single one of them. So the biggest one I think is actually going to move the needle to an extent is this increased first-time home buyer RSP withdrawal. So prior it was 25,000, now it's 35,000, and now they're pushing it to 60,000. So this only works if your family income is sub $120,000. So again, they're making it a little bit difficult and there's caveats for you to get it, but a 60,000 RSP pullout on top of a FHSA that they implemented last year is a substantial amount. So let's do the math, right? So $120,000 couple, call it 60 grand each. That's a $10,000 tax you have to pay each year. By contributing that $10,000, you create that kind of credit back you can get later, right? Which is great, right? So that's what I'm saying, it's going to move the needle. But again, remember, this is capped at $120,000. So the people making $60,000, it's going to be a sub, call it, six figure, and you're not that large of a tax bracket to move the needle. Now, if you're an individual with $120,000, this may move the needle with you a little bit more. So we add all of this stuff up of what you're allowed to withdraw now. You can do $60,000 in your RSP. You're about $16,000 in your first-time home savers account, which is like an RSP. So you're at like $75,000 worth of tax-free money you can withdraw from it, which is good, which is why I'm saying it will move the needle. It'll help some people when they take the money out. And I would say this probably helps with the closing costs, but it's not going to be like, oh, hey, I can buy a property right away, right? So that's change number two. Again, moving in the right direction, very small segment of people will be affected, but still good nonetheless. The third one is they have something here that I don't honestly understand how they're planning to do. It's called permanent amortization relief. My concern is when they look at this thing that says permanent, what do they mean by permanent, right? So you have to essentially apply for relief. And, in the past, I've talked about it before. If you go to your bank, if you're insured, you could go from 25-year mortgage to 40-year pretty easily if you're with a certain insurer. Now, I've seen some people apply for relief. Some have gotten, some have not gotten it. But this permanent relief, are they saying, hey, I'm going to move you to 35 or 40-year amortization permanently? And I don't know about that. This is still very vague. And for me, this looks like we're extending and pretending, right? This entire fiscal budget, it looks like they're applying little minor segments of the market that will be affected to help them buy. But a lot of it is kind of like kicking the can down the road and extending debt. And this one right here with the extended mortgage amortization period, permanent, sounds like one of those extend and pretend. So now the next one we got is the extended repayment grace period for first-time home buyers. So this is me getting to nitty-gritty now. When you use your RSP, you're essentially allowed 15 years to pay back that amount you borrowed, right? So prior, if you had $25,000 you withdrew from, you would have to basically make $1,600, give or take, per year to repay it back. And you had 15 years to pay that back, and they give you a 2-year grace period. So it's a 17-year to pay back that $25,000. And now that they're doing $60,000, they're changing the grace period from 2 years to 5 years. It means that you have 15 years to pay off that $60,000, plus the first 5 years you don't have to pay, unlike previously where the first 2 years you don't have to pay. So again, another version of extending and pretending and just helping first-time home buyers alleviate and kick the can down the road so they can get into the market right now. Not a bad thing, but again, doesn't necessarily move the needle, right? Another tidbit that they have here is they're adding more money to the Housing Accelerator Fund. So they're saying that for $400 million, they're going to be fast tracking 12,000 new units over the next 3 years. Wonderful, 4,000 units. Not going to move the needle, but again, it helps with creating more supply, which is perfectly fine. And they have another one, which is finally great that they're actually doing it. They're putting some money aside to help link the income verification when you apply for a mortgage with CRA. So basically, it can match that line 15,000 to prevent mortgage fraud, essentially, right? So this is long overdue. How they implement it, I don't know, but at least they're finally talking about it, which is a good sign. Is this going to move the needle a little bit? Yeah, I would say it makes people feel better about kind of there's no mortgage fraud going on, but is it going to take a lot of demand out of it? Probably not, I would say, because I think the interest rates have done that already. Is it going to, prevent it from a lot of people doing mortgage fraud when interest rates come down? Yeah, probably. Then they also got another infrastructure bill. So they are adding $6 billion to upgrade the essential housing infrastructure around home building activities. Great. I don't know honestly what that means, but sure, that's wonderful. Then you got one that says support renters and childcare. So this is the Canadian Renters Bill of Rights that we talked about, I think a week or two ago. Again, I think this is more favor the landlords more so than anything, but whatever. And then also not allowing people to take back the use of their home if someone has like a child or like someone that is in need of childcare. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but I think the idea here is somebody basically, had to get rent evicted because the landlord had to take the property back, and they probably got hit with like market rent and it was really rough, and they don't want to do that with like new kids, right? So I think that's the idea. How they're gonna implement that, I have no idea, but again, it's there, right? So some of these next ones are more like renovation related. So this is what you got here is making your home cheaper to heat and easier on the environment. So they're putting away like $900 million to help with the affordability of greener homes. They had something similar to this based on like windows and efficiency. Like I think in 2018, like we took advantage of that. But this is very specific with like renters or people with medium incomes. So my look at this is depending on how they implement this, no renter is going to invest into the landlord's property. So that doesn't make any sense. The median income, depending on which province you are, may not even have the budget for renovations. And so much of this is for making your home cheaper by putting new windows in. My thinking is how about just cut the carbon tax and just reduce the cost of like gas bill. So it reduces the actual cost of heating, because yes, you can get new energy efficient windows for like $2,000 and maybe they give you $1,000 rebate, but you're still paying $1,000 out of pocket, which would make a lot more difference if you just drop the gas bill percentage. Anyways, yeah, but at least they're trying, right? So then you got the investment for adding, I think they got $50 million for helping develop kind of new breakthrough for home building. So there's like automation, if you want 3D print homes or like prefab. So again, that's great. This just depends on where that money is going to go and if it's going to have any kind of results. That's all still TBD. Then they got one here that's providing low-cost loans to prefabricated housing projects. So they put $500 million away with low-cost financing, similar to this CMHC MLI Select, to kind of help people create apartments using prefab to increase the supply much faster. So I'm all for this, right? Because you're creating a lot more rental supply and a lot more, inventory, so that there's not much like fervor for like rents to increase, which is all wonderful. So I'm all for this, and incentivizing the private sector with low cost loans makes total sense. Exactly what they did with CMHC MLS Direct. I'm all for this. And then the last one here they got here is offering a low cost financing for homeowners to add an additional suite. So if you want to add a legal, okay, just be very, very specific, a legal secondary suite to your home, they're going to give you a low cost $40,000 finance. Now, the $40,000 isn't really going to get you much. Like if you want to put like I call it a 2-bedroom basement that's legal downstairs, if it's from start to finish, you're probably looking at like $80,000 to $120,000 depending on the size. But if it's kind of like something that's already kind of pre-existing and you are turning it legal, that $40,000 low cost loan makes a lot of sense. The way I'm thinking about this is a lot of basement suites are non-legal units, but they're still being rented out right now, and they're just providing some kind of supply. So when you provide $40,000 loan, you're not creating much supply because the illegal units are probably being rented out anyways. But that $40,000 loan may not be enough to create like an empty, non-finished basement into a finished one. So I think that amount is probably too small, but it may help some people with the financing costs of making a legal unit. But if I were to do the math, if someone really wants to rent out the basement, they could probably just do it not legally for less than that cost, right? So again, I think it's a move in the right direction. Is it going to move the needle? Probably not too much. So like overall, I think this entire federal budget what relate to real estate in GTA is a good step in the right direction. I feel like if they did this years ago and they kept compounding to kind of like the proposals that they have and they keep adding things to help increase supply, I think would have moved the needle. But I think it's a little bit too late right now. And because, not going to get political, but it's kind of like an election year coming up next year. And a lot of these things that they're doing right now isn't going to have an effect until like years down the road, right? So I think for the Liberals, a little bit too late, but at least we're heading in the right direction and we're going to be creating a lot of rental supply based on what, some of these proposals are. Anyways, I hope this gives you an idea of what's happening in the real estate market and how some of these federal budgets are going to impact it. In short, it's not going to have much short-term impact on like your decision if you're planning to transact in real estate this year. Probably like 3 or 4 years down the road when a lot of this stuff is implemented correctly, right? And if you're looking to work with our team for buying, selling, or investing in this current market right now, you can book a call with me using the link that's on the screen right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya! Now that you're done watching this one, how about this one? Or this one? You know what? Just watch them.